I'm going to stay with the man at the back, and then I'll come to you in the front. Right, go ahead.
I don't mind having ladies first. I try and be a
No,
gentleman.
that's all right.
Anyway, there's a couple of people that stimulated my brain to come up here and to say this. One was the point about the rally, the prorogation rally. I was actually one of the organisers. So we had 11,000 people in the square, but not a bit of problem. I also do event planning for a living. Now, having worked at many events, I see the police here, and I see the police here. And having been to a lot of meetings this year to do with the G20 planning meetings, that sort of thing, on the summit that's going on, and there's a whole debate between that. A lot of people that have been to Copenhagen, people have been, they went to the States, different ones, and the gentleman, wherever he is, brought it up about the police. I was astounded, disgusted, and really naive until I found out reality, how aggressive and how many problems the police actually cause at these events. And a lot of people are saying, if the police weren't there, we wouldn't have these problems. Now, I've been on a few rallies like that, and the police have been great. So my suggestion to the police officer, sorry, I don't know your name, sir.
George Tucker.
Oh, thank you, George. Is there's from end to end the spectrum of police. And I just wondered whether you could do, because I met a group of police in Queen's Park, an event 2 years ago. The guy who ran it, he was a dream the way he treated. It was a black event, and he was incredible. I've never come across a police officer so great with crowds. There's no problem. He just laid back, and stuff happened, and it was great. He had total control, but there was no problems because of the way he approached it. Another event I did in the East End, the actual staff sergeant caused half the problems going on. So my suggestion to you is, having seen the spectrum, is there any way that you, and I did stuff with the Japanese when they were here last week, the royalty, last year rather, is there any way, and the RCMP were wonderful there, is there any way you could actually try and do some testing or looking at how aggressive the police you're putting in there, so the guys that are in there are the group of guys that are at this end of the spectrum that are really good, that aren't going to cause any problems, and can you make sure that you get through to all your people wherever they are and don't get agitators out there? Because nobody really wants to be violent in any of these groups, and there's so much discussion going on about this, and we're really concerned about the police might cause problems when nobody wants it. So there's a suggestion for you, and thank you for listening to me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I live in the Fort York area. It doesn't sound like it's going to be too much of a problem unless they change it to the CNE. Then that's a different story. But anyways, my question is, we have a lot of construction in our area, and if you could send a message to the developers to clean up the construction material, because the last thing we need is overzealous demonstrators picking up plywood or things like that. Okay?
That's a very good idea.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
And the city staff are nodding all of their heads, and the construction debris. Right, thank you. Good, good. This is exactly why we have these meetings. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I have a few questions. I live on Sullivan Street in this ward. When Adam forwarded a letter in February, I actually wrote the city back, and I was just curious because Gay Pride Festival is that. Gay Pride Festival is that weekend, and the Jazz Festival opens, and some other major city festivals open. So that's just more of a comment that. How will it affect major city events that weekend, like tourists coming in, busloads of people, et cetera, et cetera. So it might affect the
Pride Day has been moved back
Yes.
to the long weekend. There has been a change in that, but other events have been adjusted to accommodate.
That has been,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
So they took your suggestion.
Oh, good. And I'm curious, this is like a three-part question. Where is the Toronto police zone boundaries exactly? Is that the whole city, or like?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what your question is.
Where is the police zone, Toronto police zone boundaries? Like, will that be, Grange Park, for example, or?
No, not Grange. As I said, there is a traffic area.
Yeah.
This is not safety fences. This is not security zones. There's a traffic zone right now that is being from King Street down to the lake, from Spadina to Yonge.
Okay.
That is just a traffic congestion zone, so
All
to
right.
say.
And-
Smaller, much smaller than that, contained in that traffic zone.
Yeah.
Think around the Metro Toronto Convention Center where the summit is,
Yeah.
will be the perimeters of the fences. That we won't disclose until sometime around the start of June, but we will be disclosing that.
Okay. You mentioned the RCMP officers will be predominant here for this event because it's a federal event. How is the RCMP officers' law different from Toronto Police law or OPP officers' law, and are OPP officers involved?
Well, you're talking to three experts up here, because number one, I have to live within those laws, and number two, these are the overseers of me doing my job, living within those laws.
Right.
The laws are predominantly the same. They
Okay.
have extraordinary responsibilities because of the RCMP Act is a federal statute, and that's why I said earlier, it falls under their responsibilities to deal with summits and internationally protected people. We work with them as equal partners in tandem with them. You will not probably be coming up to the RCMP officers a lot because they will be contained inside things like the Metro Toronto Convention Center, dealing with the up-close security of the internationally protected people. You will probably more often than not be dealing with the Toronto Police Service. We will be doing the outer security zone, which is the larger one,
Yeah.
and that'll be the first one that you come into contact with.
Okay. And this leads me to ask you, I don't own a driver's license. I've never driven a car in my life. I don't want a driver's
Well, you
license.
got to learn.
No, I'm a bicyclist.
Okay.
So I don't have any current photo ID. My passport expired about 4 years ago. Should I go to the passport office and get some photo ID?
Do you have an OHIP card with a photo on it?
I do not. I refuse to get one.
Okay.
Anyone.
A passport, I think, would be a good idea. I
Okay.
don't actually drive either, and,
Okay.
but I do have an OHIP card with a photo on.
Okay.
But I would, I think it's a good idea anyway.
Okay. My next question, thank you, is Adam, you said this event is designed in Ottawa and managed in Toronto. So who picks up the tab? Who pays for it?
There is, the phrase I think that caught my attention was that we're going to pick up everything under the federal formula, which means there's a formula, they're not picking up everything. There are a range of different impacts in a range of different city budgets that are that are going to have to shoulder costs, as well as other funds that are set aside to try and compensate businesses that are directly impacted or property owners in a different way. The security detail is essentially funded, although there are implications and pressures on the police budget which will be driven up but are not compensated, and we're in negotiations to try to figure that out. And there are split funding models on a whole series of capital upgrades to some systems. But things like the rental of the fences, as an example, is covered. In terms of city services, unless there is a direct relationship to the security side of this event, it's very difficult to recoup those costs under this federal formula. There is a lot of overtime and a lot of other costs that will be driven onto the city's budget and will be a pressure that we'll have to shoulder, and that's an extensive pressure. We also have, as an example, a whole series of city services like the TTC, which will be impacted. They won't be shut down, but they will be having delays in their services that will create cost pressures on the TTC. As an example, garbage collection in the area will have to be restructured. That creates overtime in garbage collection. Those costs, unfortunately, because the federal government has been very reticent to give us a dollar commitment on, will likely be borne by Toronto taxpayers. What's disappointing about that is that in the G8 summit north of here, most of, if not all of those costs have been picked up. You might have heard me commenting on this. They built hockey rinks in Huntsville. They built a brand new airport in North Bay, and they're not even going to see G8 traffic come through it. They've spent close to $23 million outside the city gussying up the G8 summit. We're on our own a little bit in the city of Toronto, and I think political pressure from Olivia Chow's office and all the other MPs in the city. I see no reason why Scarborough or Etobicoke homeowners, let alone my homeowners and Pam's businesses and all of us, should be picking up the tab for Stephen Harper's party. We need those questions answered sooner rather than later to mitigate the impact so we don't lose city services as a result of hosting the global economy debate.
Thank you. And yes, thank you. Two more questions. Sorry, they're really quick, actually.
Very quickly
I'm
is a
planning.
good
Yeah,
line.
I'm planning an event in Grange Park. It's my son's graduation party. It's actually at St. George Lamar Church, and we're having hopefully a little closing ceremony in the park Wednesday, June 23rd, in the evening. So I need to know about security. Are there any restrictions on this location?
You should be
for
okay,
that?
but as with the residents in the island, or people using island facilities, if you could contact my office, we'll make sure that we understand
Okay.
exactly how that needs to
Great.
operate.
Okay, and the last question, it's a fun comment. If there's a stage sound system and things in Trinity Bellwoods Park, no dishonoring to your living there, anybody else, but would it be possible for, people to just use that sound system and stage?
We have just found out about it, and as I
Okay.
said, at the public meeting in the Trinity Bellwoods, if it
Okay.
happens in Trinity Bellwoods,
They'll
with all due
decide.
respect,
Okay.
there will be, we need to get a better understanding of what's
Yeah.
being
Okay.
proposed, because city officials haven't briefed any of the
Okay,
councillors
so
yet.
we can't plan like a G-Stock summit?
Oh, no, dear. It sounds to me as if people are, no.
Okay, and finally,
Oh, that's the second finally.
okay, that's it.